that. Let's do that. Let's do that. Good evening, everybody. Matt Geary here for the Geek Pride cast on this Sunday evening. With me, as always, we have Peter Ray Allison.
Good evening, everyone.
And our special guest tonight, author Danafredsti.
Hi there.
Hi. So, Dana, who are you? What do you do? Explain yourself.
Well, you're supposed to introduce me, Pete. You know,
this is how we introduce people.
This is how I do it. And it's just like it saves me just in case I get something wrong. So I put the onus on you.
Great. So now I have to remember my own bio. I am an ex. I used to say B movie, but let's just go to C or D or way down the alphabet. I was in some really bad movies. I did some specialty stunt work, which was sword fighting. And then I decided that I'd rather work in my pajamas than diet. So now I'm a writer, and I've written several series, including the Ashley Parker series, which basically it was promoted as Buffy meets The Walking Dead, and I think that's a pretty fair assessment of it. And Pete is in the third book. You're in Plague World. Yeah, I did not kill you. I did not kill you. I was feeling kind that day. Yeah.
Holy shit! You're in the book. He's in the book.
Yep, I am in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the book as Indiana.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
Yep.
He did a walking tour of Sheffield for me, I believe it was, and took all of these photos. And because I hadn't at that time ever been to Sheffield, and I wanted to know. It's more fun destroying places when you know what they look like, you know. And I had a lot of fun in that series, taking out a lot of places and people. And then my second series is The Spawn of Lilith, and the main character is a stunt woman who also is a descendant of Lilith and a demon fighter. And then I co-wrote the Time Shards series, which is science fiction. If you're a Doctor Who fan, I think it's for you, with my husband, David Fitzgerald. And we live in Eureka, California, in a 100-year-old Victorian house. Actually, it's over 100 years, I guess. And it's beautiful and very cold and drafty. Very cold ceilings. We have 10 cats and 1 dog. So
what sort of dog do you have?
That's all you get me for them. Oh, she's a cattle dog, Akita.
Oh, wow. Quite big then, Akitas.
Yeah.
Oh, I think she broke. You gone? You there? Oh
Uh-oh.
no! No. You're frozen on a on a video face. But
the sound just went very wonky on my end here.
That's okay. I think we can still hear
we're
you.
Frozen.
We can still hear you. You can go if it's causing. Oh, I think there you are. Yep, there you go. You're back. You're back. As long as we can hear you, that's all podcasts are about. Stuff. As long as we can hear you.
So I mean, the first you jumped from acting into writing. How did that come about? I mean, that is quite a big jump, especially skill wise.
Yeah, I actually wanted to write ever since I was very, very young. I started writing when I was old enough to string words together, and then my best friend and I had a theatrical troupe in San Diego called Murder for Hire. Which was, you know, walking mystery tours and things like that. And for me, the acting, it kind of, all of the experiences, everything I've ever done in my life, there was always in the back of my head, oh, I could turn this into a story. Oh, I could put this in a book. Oh, I could kill that person in my book because it pissed me off. So it was kind of a natural jump because I've always liked to do it. And I've written screenplays, and my ex and I wrote together, and it's just always been a big part of my life. And acting and living in LA, it's exhausting, and I did not care enough about it to jump through the hoops. I did not have the drive, whereas with writing, I have the drive, even though sometimes it kind of putters out a little bit. So
I've got a random message from Elisa Brackman on Facebook. It says Ralph Rentasfell.
Ralph Rentasafel. Oh, okay, Lisa Brackman is my sister,
right,
who's also a writer.
Right.
A really, really good thriller writer. And when I was young, I wrote a book that was basically this these kids living in a house by the sea, and the villain of the book, his name was Ralph Rentesafel. And I don't know, my family thought that was the funniest name ever, and all I did was sit there and string words together until I had enough syllables. But that's a good villain name, so
yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Bringing that up.
Keep asking those embarrassing questions.
Yeah, keep on going.
That's your job.
That's true. Actually, yeah, before you became a writer, also you were an actor. Now, one of the kind of the big films you've been was Army of Darkness, wasn't it?
No way! You were in Army of Darkness.
I had several jobs in that. I was the on-set armorer's assistant, and then I was a sword fighting captain and helped teach the extras the basic moves for sword fighting. And I was also a deadite. So I was one of the sword fighting deadites. And,
Amazing.
I was an A deadite, which means that we had the full-on latex costume and worked with the, it's been a long time when all of a sudden you can't remember the name of the extremely well-known special effects company that did the deadite costumes.
It's going to annoy me now because I know this. We're going to Google this now. We're going to have to Google this now.
Could you please?
Yeah.
That would make me feel better. I hate getting old.
So when you're watching that film, do you go, "That's me, that's me, that's me"?
I can actually do that. I know where I am in that. It's very hard to, people are like, "Oh, I saw you in that movie," and I'm like, "You couldn't have seen me because you have to know exactly where I am because a lot of the live action was replaced with the, the computer generated herky jerky deadites." So yeah, if you know the movie well, there's a scene where Ash is fighting evil Sheila up above, and he's guarding the book. And you'll notice that there's a soldier in the background that just dies over and over again. This nasty deadite's killing him. I am the deadite, and my friend Adam was the soldier. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah.
Still trying to find this bloody company now. It's going to annoy me because I know who it is as well, and it's just in the tip of my. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Thank you for making.
Is it K and B effects? Is that it? No.
K and B. Yeah. And the fellow that now directs for Walking Dead was one of the people in that company, and I can't think of his name right now, which is horribly embarrassing. God. Oh well. I have other things. 2020.
Your sister says Tony Gardner / I'm gonna get them horrible these names.
Yeah.
Alturian.
Alturian did the evil Ash makeup, but K&B did all of the deadite costumes.
We've got Tom Sullivan, Kurt, oh my god, these names are here just to torture me. Kurtzman, Nicotera, and Berger.
Oh, Greg Nicotero. Yeah. They were great. They were really fun to work with. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, Army of Darkness was fun.
What's Bruce Campbell like?
He's a lot like Ash.
Okay.
Well, he was producing and acting and everything all at once, and I think that it's probably a lot of pressure. It's just he was probably exhausted, and a lot of the time he really seemed a lot like his character. But I got to tell you, if he's watching you rehearse your sword fight and afterwards smiles and gives you a thumbs up, it was you can forgive him for the Ash type moments.
It seems like he doesn't hold back, and he either likes it or he doesn't. He doesn't kind of be diplomatic, does it?
Yeah. How can I answer that diplomatically?
Say no more.
Say no more.
Okay. One of these, the Spawn of Lilith, the character is like a stunt woman. Now, obviously, given your background, how much did that kind of inform the writing of the character in Spawn of Lilith?
A lot. Like I said, I was a specialty player. Sword fighting was what I did and what I do very well. I've never been set on fire. I've never fallen off a very tall building. I don't want to. I used the other problem is that when I was involved in the film industry, it was 20 years ago, and things have changed just from how you audition to just the way everything works. So my own experiences definitely inform it, and I try to draw as much as I can, and then I have to figure out, okay, how can I bring this, more into the 21st century? So I talk to a lot of people. I talk to my friends who still do stunt work. I had a phone call with Amber Benson, Tara from Buffy, who very kindly told me what it was like to be an actress now. She spent a couple hours on the phone answering questions and just giving me an idea of how things had changed. And, but yeah, when my editor and I first discussed the whole concept of making her a stunt woman, it really inspired me and made me really want to write this series, because I was sort of floundering, trying to figure out what she would do. What is her Clark Kent identity, as my editor likes to say. And when we hit Stunt Woman, it was like, yeah, okay, we're here.
So where did that come from? So did you just suddenly go, I just want to beat people with swords? And where did that sort of kind of spawn from? Was that?
Well, my sister and I did used to sword fight with sticks when we were little, but really did it was when I saw the 3 in Four Musketeers, the Richard Lester versions with Michael York as D'Artagnan and Christopher Lee as Rochefort. Oh, and my first
Christopher Lee.
That man. Anyway, I digress. And I wanted to sword fight. The fights by Will and they're amazing. So that really was what inspired me. And then I met a guy at a Ren fair, and he was complaining about his sword fighting partner backing out, and he wanted to do his fight there. And I basically popped up and said, I'll do it. And he turned around and took a look at me and went, okay, and taught me my first sword fight and my first basics and how to do it. So, and I do like beating people up with swords. Yes, it's fun. So.
The sort of sword play that you do, is it dramatized, or is it sort of rooted in historical sort of sword fighting, or?
When I was studying with the Academy of Theatrical Combat, Dan was very, very, very careful to get as much accuracy in terms of the historical styles as possible. So learning small sword, it was as close as he could figure out how to make it, how they actually would fight that way. And then that was translated into a theatrical version of it, because you need to be aware of your angles when you're on film or even on stage. Anything from a punch. If you're on stage, you have to create the sound yourself. If it's the wrong angle, you see space that big, like here's the chin, here's the fist, and it kind of spoils the illusion. So it's a combination of the two. And I've done other fights that are just completely ridiculous, no accuracy as far as history whatsoever, but they're still cracking good fights. So,
yeah, it's like you see in all the lightsaber battles in Star Wars and stuff. They do all those spins and things like that, and it's just like they're never going to do anything like that, are they? In real life, that's completely impractical.
No, we are not Jedis, and I'm also really tired of sword fights with wire work, like the Three Musketeers that they did with another name that I can't remember, and she was in Fifth Element, the awesome. Thank you. Yes, and I really like her, but that whole the wire work and the crap that they did in that movie, it's like, no, I prefer my Three Musketeers historically accurate. So,
yeah.
Did I answer your question, or did
yes. I'm very much.
Is there like official certification for theatrical sword fighting? And
what was the question?
Official certification for sword fighting in.
It depends. I mean, there's the Society of Fight Directors, and you have various levels that you go through. At the Academy of Theatrical Combat, same thing. There were, you had to test to go up a certain level. But like anything else, I think it's kind of arbitrary. I know people that have never gotten certified that are just as talented as anyone who has. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I was always curious. I mean, how did kind of directors go right? Okay, we've got a sword fight coming up. We need some sword fighters. So how did they kind of sort out? Okay, who can wield a sword and who can actually use a sword?
It's interesting because one of the problems that we had in Army of Darkness was that we had stuntmen, a stunt crew, and they knew a little bit about sword fighting, but honestly, it's sort of like they were kind of put out that they had brought in the Academy of Theatrical Sword Fighting people to Dan Speaker to choreograph because they felt that that should be their job. And the thing is like, you know, I kind of got into I kind of got into it with the head stunt guy there, who was actually a really nice guy, and I was in a mood that day, but he was saying that they were pissed off because we were taking jobs away from professionals, and I was like, okay, I've studied this for 10 years now. I'm getting paid to do it. That makes me a professional. We were specialty players, and it's one of those things that there's still stuntmen out there that I've talked to that still feel that should just be their job, and there's other people that feel that it's appropriate to bring in people who very, very, narrow focus on one particular skill. So,
specialists. Yeah.
Specialists, yeah.
So this was the stunt guys were getting RC with you because you were taking their work from them.
Yeah, kind of, sort of, and so I would have been more diplomatic now because I'm older and wiser. I do still think I was right. I think my definition of a professional was right, but I'd have a little bit more sympathy for their position. It's just, stuntmen and sword fighters, there's a lot of ego involved, a lot. And I know very few people who are in those worlds that don't have, a certain amount of ego. So.
Have you ever seen any of the sort of it's I can't even remember the name of it. It's basically MMA, but it's with like knights with armor, and they clobber each other with swords and maces and things like that.
You mean the Society of Creative Anachronisms or the I know
it's I'll need to find it again, but it's basically I think like it's literally it's like mixed martial arts, but it's they do it in armor, and a woman
won last year. They had a big their big tournament that they had, or the contest. A woman won, right? Am I thinking of the right?
Yeah. So you've got like it's amazing, so good, and it's brutal as well. And you can see some of the big skirmishes they have, where you have 10 versus 10, and they don't lay off. And these are like, obviously they're not sharp. They don't, there's certain rules and stuff, but the case is literally just hammer your opponent until he yields. And yeah, it's brutal, absolutely brutal.
That does not sound fun.
It looks like good fun. I'm not gonna lie. It's just like they're in armor. They're in full plate armor, and but it's
ow.
Yeah, and it's just like they've got obviously
echo.
They've got the plate on. They've got the gambesons on. They've got everything sort of there to protect them. But they come out bloody and stuff. But it's a martial art. And they do sort of. It looks awesome. Not that I would be strong. I know I would be brave enough to sort of don a suit of plate armor and have a go with a mace or something. But it's good to watch.
I'd rather spar with rapier and dagger and than put armor on and be whacked with a sword. But I would definitely go and watch that and cheer people on.
Yeah.
And
did you ever do fencing? Did you do fencing?
I did some fencing, yeah, and my husband, he's got a fencing background.
Wow.
So we still get out and do some sparring with.
You and Dave still spar?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
We not with anyone else, but yes, it is love. And also the thing is that when you do, Dan Speaker would yell at me for this because he thinks sparring is a bad thing when you're a theatrical sword fighter. But for me, it's like I know what distance is safe because that's drilled into you when you're doing a theatrical fight. Is it's about selling the fight. It's not about hurting your opponent or even tagging them. So you learn the distance. So when Dave and I spar, I can tell, how I cannot hurt him basically.
Are you the better swordsman?
Yeah.
And he's a really good fencer. I mean, he's got a strictly fencing background. He does not have a theatrical combat background, and when I was younger, I ran with a crowd that we would spar. That's one of the things that we did. So, and there was people that looked at us like, you guys are crazy. We only did it with each other. We didn't challenge people to duels or anything like that. It was just something that we did because we worked together theatrically and we trusted each other, and it was fun. But I wouldn't say that either Dave and I is the better. It's because we have different backgrounds.
Different skill
sometimes
sets.
he scores. Yeah, basically. Sometimes he scores more, touches. Sometimes I do.
I mean, there's been a kind of resurgence in, like, in HEMA, historical European martial arts, hasn't there?
HEMA, yeah.
That's it. That's what I was looking for. HEMA.
That's it. That's the one.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, and like, like, so when you go and spar, do you like do it in your back garden, or do you go to local park or something?
When we were in San Francisco, we liked to go to Golden Gate Park. When we couldn't, didn't have time to get out there, we would just go in our street in front of our house, and then we just like stop when, oh, there's a car coming. Gotta go to the sidewalk.
Game on.
We had a little neighborhood. Yeah, basically. And the neighbors would come out and watch and cheer us on. And we had a little neighborhood boy who went into fencing later on because he was so inspired by watching us.
That's awesome. That's so good. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that really comes out in your writing is you kind of choreograph the fight scenes incredibly well. I mean, you know what's happening, and like, just from reading it, you can easily visualize it. Rather than some fight scenes where you can, well, what's going on? I can't understand. But you really kind of embed the reader in the fight scene, and there's no kind of confusion. You absolutely know what everyone is. I mean, does your kind of background in fighting and choreography kind of inform your writing in that way?
Yeah, it definitely does that. And I took a lot of martial arts when I was younger as well. And, nothing that I'm great at, but the background really helps when I'm choreographing fights in my head. And then also it's like, Dave, come here, let me see if this will work. Stand there. And, yeah, so.
Well, that must be good, because there's a lot of writers out there who struggle, I find, with combat in books, because I think it's probably quite hard to, visualize in a writer's mind unless you have the experience like yourself. Even sort of like, George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones books, when it comes to combat and stuff like that, he shies away from it quite a lot. There's sort of, there's a lot of stuff in the Song of Ice and Fire books where he'll go, and this happened, and this person died, and this happened, and it's just like, because I don't know, he obviously doesn't enjoy that part of the writing, but I enjoy a book where you really get into the combat side of the writing. It just really engages me. I love it.
Well, good.
Yeah,
have to read my books then.
Yes, my apologies. It's just I'm one of those guys who has literally got a long, sort of massive reading list, and it's just like, I need to get that book. Oh, cat! We got a cat. Oh, it's a black cat.
Which cat's that one?
Which one's that one?
This is Bugbear.
Bugbear.
He's
all
also
right.
called Alien Space Baby because he's got these funny, starey, glowy, wide-set eyes like a little alien.
Oh.
And yeah, that he likes to get up exactly where my computer is sitting. He likes to sit up there and stare at me. So I just thought he should join in the call there.
There's something about black cats. Or one of the other guys who does a podcast, Mark's got a black cat, and it's perpetually on him or on the computer when he's doing his podcasts. That's really where they are. So what? When it comes to sort of what you write, what sort of genre do you favor, would you say? What would you sort of, what's your preference when you're writing?
I like horror, and I like humor, and I like combining it. I like any genre where I can just dive in and let my imagination go crazy. And I think that's why dark urban fantasy is what they call the Spawn of Lilith and the Ashley Parker books. And for me, it's like, I call it horror. And Pete will tell you, I can't write without humor. It's a few stories that I have, I like them, but it's really hard for me to keep the humor out.
It feels like I enjoyed them, but it feels like it feels forced in some. I don't know how to describe it. It's like the great story, it just feels that, in a sense, I don't know. It's like when you're writing, it feels a bit forced in your writing when you're trying to play it absolutely serious. But when you when I'm reading books and you kind of allowed to kind of bring that humor element to it, it feels much more natural.
Yeah.
The one thing,
it's more natural to write that way too. So
yeah.
I find that sort of a lot of British horror seems to be quite comical. You know, you can't really get a British horror film without sort of, or a lot of books as well, where there's not a sort of a comedy edge. I like a prime example, and one of my favorites is Dog Soldiers. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Amazing, so funny, but quite scary in the same way and stuff. And they always have that sort of edge. And it's like you think with comedy, it takes away from the horror aspect of it, but I think it sort of kind of lulls you into a false sense of security before it scares the shit out of you. You know.
Like Dead Set for me is another really good example
Yes.
of British horror that's got some of the funniest things I've ever seen, but it's horrific, and you know, and that's what I like. That's the kind of thing
That's
I really
Charlie
enjoy.
Brooker, isn't it? Charlie Brooker's Dead Set, because obviously he does all the Black Mirror stuff. Again, yeah. So it's like there's a comedy edge to it, but it's very, very dark. It's got very dark, and it's hard to explain. It's like when I try to explain, like I listen to heavy metal, and it's like I'm trying to explain. It's like you've got two completely contrasting emotions, and they go so well together because you've got your heavy and you've got your soft, or you've got your horror and you've got your comedy, and because they are the antithesis of each other, they kind of work really well, and it sort of kind of adds to the emotional state of the whole thing, I think.
Yeah.
One thing I'm going to ask about is how common is it for women to be in stunt work now, and how compared to how it was back then? From my perspective, it seems to be still a kind of very masculine.
The world is very slow to change, and I since I haven't been involved in that world in a while, I'm trying to remember. I interviewed my friend Alina Andre, who's a stunt woman, and I know that sexism is still a thing. There's always going to be guys involved that are really supportive of you, and sometimes very protective too. Like back in the day, the guys that were involved in the academy tended to have this. Sometimes they had this sort of, we're guys, we're just slightly better. They are also very protective, and then very. I was in a very rarefied little area because I was involved with this group, and so I didn't experience a lot of stuff that you might if you're going in and interviewing for a job. I was with a group that got hired for a job.
Right.
I didn't. So I don't really know how much it's changed. I know that sexism is going to be a thing for a long time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But it used to be that men did the stunts for women. They doubled women, and that you don't see very often anymore. It is changing. It's changing slowly, but there's a lot of women involved with it. I should have pulled out my books and reread them before this, because I did a lot of reading books about stunt work. Some were about stunt women, some stunt men. All of them fascinating, just a really interesting world. I don't know if I answered your question or if I just went down 5 rabbit holes. There's information for you.
It reminds me of Spaceballs when you've got the princess, and she's sort of kind of rolling down the hill, and it actually turns out they bump into her, and it's a guy with a beard and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Your most recent books is Time Shards series. Now, how did that kind of collaboration with your husband come about?
I blame Comic-Con. We were driving home from Comic-Con one year, and Dave used to create role-playing games. That was just one of his favorite things to do. He's a huge world builder, and So he was telling me this idea he'd had for a tabletop role-playing game, which is basically what happens if, the time is a loop, and if the whole thing shatters like a stained glass window and it gets put back, but all the pieces in the wrong place. So, you have a patch of, the Jurassic here, you have Cromwellian England here, and these things just start overlapping, and you have people that survived the initial event that are in this world trying to figure out, okay, what the hell's happened? What do we do? And he told me this idea, and the hair rose on the back of my neck. See, you can see it rising there. And I just was like, oh my God, this is a great idea. This is a book. And so I pitched it to my agent, and she sold it to Titan, and that's what happened.
Nice.
Did he make the RPG out of it? Did it turn into a game?
No,
No, that sounds really good. Oh, has she gone?
But we think it would make a fine RPG, and that someone should, offer us money to do something.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Myself and Pete do a regular Dungeons and Dragons game on Thursday night.
Nice.
So yeah, it's RPGs, gotta love them. Do they take up a lot of your life? Like IDM, and my life consists of chats within WhatsApp to sort of with it before in between games, then obviously the game itself, then world building, and then trying to work out things that I haven't anticipated because the group's gone off on a completely different angle than they should have. And it's just like, oh no, I gotta think about this. It's just like, it's a lot of fun, but it's so time consuming.
I think if you love it, then why not? Especially after 2020, life is short, and spending time doing what you love is a very good thing. So,
yeah, how's 2020 kind of affected you and your writing?
Oh, God. Well, my writing has been it's been slowing down over the last 4 years. 2016, lost my mother, and Trump got elected, and
he's nearly out. He's nearly out. So close.
Yeah, the PTSD for so many people, it's been really, really hard. And then having to move, with 3 months notice and pack up a life, and have no idea what kind of a job. It's been very difficult. And so the third book for the Lilith series, my editor, thank you, Steve, I love you, he got me an extension that I really needed, because I've been having a very hard time writing. It's just like, I'm working part-time at a museum, which is really cool. And I work as an editor, and I also work as an assistant to Jonathan Mayberry, who, if you haven't read his books, you must read his books.
Patient Zero is fantastic.
He's awesome, and he's just, he's a wonderful friend and a wonderful boss, but I'm busy all the damn time. And so trying to then get my brain to kick into creative mode and write. So we spent the last couple months for this. I hate outlining, but this was absolutely the right thing to do. I've got about a third of the book finished, and I think I'm going to get there, but it's been really, really, really hard. And I think that after this book is done, I just want to take a month and let my brain drizzle down and decide what it wants to do next. And, I haven't not had a contract, and I know that that's definitely a first world problem for a writer, but I haven't not had a book due in, since 2007, I guess.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
give yourself some time, your brain some time off, and just to let it equilibrium.
Yeah.
Do you get do you get writer's block? We've talked to lots of writers on this podcast, and some of them say no, they don't, and some of them say they do. Is it something that affects you? Do you just kind of hit a wall at some point in time, just go, I can't do this?
Yeah, and I used to joke and call it writer's constipation, where you get one teeny little word out at a time. Isn't that gross? God, what did I just say? Anyway, I mean, it's just got, like I said, over the last 4 years, especially with this move. the flow of creativity in the molasses, and then it turned into frozen molasses. So yeah, it happens. And for those of writers out there that don't get writer's block, well, yay you. I'm really. But
I hate you.
It's what people say. There's no such thing. You just have to sit and do it. And yes, there's a lot of ask and seek for writing. You have to put the time in. But I can't tell you how many times I've put the time in and have gotten nothing out. It's just gotten a few words. And there are times in your life where you just burn out. And so maybe burnout is a better way to say it than block. And again, if you're one of those writers that don't experience the burnout and you're just always enthusiastic, yay you.
Looking at your sort of your bibliography, you've sort of you've got one nearly a year, so you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, and there's other books that aren't even there that I wrote under another name. I've script authoring and all, so yeah, I stopped being hard on myself. I worked my ass off. Yeah. I've gotten a lot of books and other, short stories and stuff out there. And, so yeah.
Well, you've got like people, and again, we'll go back to George R. R. Martin. You're looking for 5 years, 6 years between books. It's going to be longer now for his next one, Winds of Winter, I think. But, so one a year is very impressive. I struggled to write. I did one of these writers' challenges on World Anvil, which is like a world building thing, and getting 10,000 words was hard enough, let alone sort of writing an entire book. So, yeah.
Has the lack of events this year had any effect on you? Like, obviously, like Comic-Cons have been cancelled. Has that kind of any effect on you at all?
Yeah, part of it is, San Diego is my hometown. I've been going to Comic-Con since it started, basically.
Love San Diego.
Yeah, and just knowing how the shutdowns and the fact that they couldn't have Comic-Con, that is so much money into San Diego and into small businesses. And so it affected me in that way more than it affected me personally. I'm bummed I didn't get to go this year. Our tick, we go with Titan. It's nice having our publisher there because we get a professional's badge and all of that, and don't worry about waiting in line for tickets. I feel, it's just more. It's more just the bigger picture of it. It didn't hurt my career at all, but other than just depression. Sorry, I'm kind of stuttering to a stop because I start thinking of all of the things about like something like Comic-Con being canceled and all of the things that affects, the ripple effect that has, and it's really depressing.
And I think it's sort of like I went to Comic-Con once, and in 2016, and it was explained to me as, in my mind, in conventions over here, you've got some big ones in London at the Excel Centre and stuff, and you go in and it is an event, but it's generally inside. Every night there's some periphery parts and stuff. But with San Diego, and I got told this, it says you'll not spend a lot of time in the convention center itself because there's so much going on outside. I didn't believe them, and as soon as I got there, I think I spent a total of 4 or 5 hours within 3 days or something, 4 days in the convention center itself, because I was literally just around. It was it takes over the entire city. It's just absolutely immense. Like the entire city is just Comic-Con, and so that's when you say it has that knock-on effect. Yeah, I can see that because all the pubs, all the everything that sort of the food, the hotels, everything is going to be affected by that. And
it's a bit like Whitby Golf Weekend, where basically the entire town, it's set in the spa in Whitby, but the entire town of Whitby is just descended upon by goths from all over the UK and beyond, and it does take over the entire town, and everyone's kind of really kind of goths up the entire all the shops and everything, fun. And that is a lot of fun. The last few times we've been there, we went there with our kids. We never actually went into the golf weekend the spa or like see the bands. We just hang out with our friends in pubs,
That's
and
what I love that.
went to the
Just
beaches.
people watch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
people
exactly.
watching is amazing. So good just to sit there and watch people and be like, oh my god. It's just so good. We used to spend a lot of time, especially like in the UK convention, especially in London, and you would just go to a bar and you would have a few drinks and you just watch people and you just go, that is so good. It's like, I don't need to go into this convention center. I can just watch people all day.
Comic-Con, we would go to one of the Stone Brewery and tasting rooms that's down there, and yeah, we would just hang out. People would come in and watch the traffic go by. It's so I hope. I mean, I don't know if we'll have Comic-Con in 2021 either. It just depends on how the vaccine is going. I really hope we can, but I guess I'd rather wait one more year than have it turn into a big petri dish of.
As I understand, well, researched vaccines recently for a BBC article, and it's looking out initial rollout. I think actually we are ahead of the schedule for initial rollout, which was initially the first quarter of 2021. Now we're already getting the vaccine out there, and basically what the idea is basic rollout first quarter, second quarter mass rollout, and I wouldn't be surprised if by this time next year we are back to normal or as close as back to normal as good as.
Wow.
But yes, I think by middle of next year you're going to see basically mass rollout of the vaccines going out to everyone.
Do you think we'll get the travel sort of? So like, I've got a friend who was getting married this summer. Obviously, had to cancel and postpone to next, and they're doing it in Italy, in Tuscany, and I would love to go back. I was going to make a holiday of it and stuff, but do you think we'll get the travel? You reckon?
Honestly, I don't know. It's basically getting enough vaccine out there to vaccinate the population, and you're trying to vaccinate 7 billion people.
And a lot of people who don't want to be vaccinated.
Well, that is their decision, and frankly, they live and die with it. So I'm not going to say any more on that one, because otherwise I'll just rant for 10 minutes, and you don't want that.
Yeah, let's not go down that rabbit hole. It's too depressing.
Yeah. So I mean, talk about 2020 has been pretty depressing. I mean, what have you been doing to kind of cheer yourself up and
Okay, well, binge watching Taskmaster. That's one of the.
Wow, no way! You watched Taskmaster.
We just finished the final episode of season 10. That show has brought us so much joy. It just, no matter how bad of a mood I'm in, I just freaking love that show. I binge watched and introduced Dave to the Sharp series with Sean Bean.
I love Sharp. Oh my god, I love it.
It's one of my favorite shows ever. Just absolutely love it. And I've been doing a lot of reading. Every night I shut my computer and make sure that I give myself at least an hour to read in bed. Lots of walking, trying to explore our new town as much as possible, given that how it's been shut. Things closed down the week after we moved. But there's still a lot of nature up here, and until recently the numbers were very low. It was a pretty safe place to be. So yeah, just I have been writing. I actually did write a whole short story. It took me much longer than it should have, but it's coming out in an anthology called Consumed. And getting the house, remembering how to bake chocolate chip cookies. Just kind of hanging out. But it's been, honestly, like I said, Taskmaster. Oh, and The Mandalorian.
Oh,
yes.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, we just finished watching that with my kiddies tonight, and
wow.
We just loved watching that. I mean, we just watched the last episode actually about an hour ago.
We haven't yet. We haven't seen the second season.
You haven't seen the second season?
No, because we were busy with another, with whatever else. Basically, we work and then we have a meal and we'll watch something while we eat, and then we'll take the evening off and watch some more. But we haven't seen second season. So no spoilers.
No spoilers.
So good. Good.
Yeah, they maintain the same quality of writing throughout the second season. And I'm not going to say anything more, but yeah, you will enjoy it.
I'm really looking forward to it. And we also, when we work, sometimes there's a certain level of like old 70s horror movies that we'll put on that you can kind of ignore. It just gives you kind of white noise, and then you can look up and see what's going on the screen and then go back to it. We watched a lot of 70s Hammer horror films. So that's just like everyone else.
Lee. Christopher Lee, what a legend. I just love the story he has when he's talking to Peter Jackson about how people die and how people, when he was doing Saruman in Lord of the Rings, and he was like, he's stabbing somebody. He says, well, that's not how somebody would die if you stabbed them. And then he starts talking about, because obviously he was in the SOS during World War II, and it's just, he's what a legend, what a quality.
Yeah, well, I mean, Christopher Lee fought Nazis, played Saruman, played Dracula in a heavy metal band.
Yes, I've listened to his heavy metal band.
That is one hell of a resume.
Yeah.
When he died, it's one of the only times I cried when a celebrity has died. I actually, when he died, it broke my heart. I mean,
yeah. Well, it's for me like Jeremy Bulloch, who played Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he died on Thursday, and that really upset me. I mean, he was one of the first people I met at a convention back in 2009, and I remember chatting to him about Star Wars for a couple of minutes, and then he spotted my daughter Ada, who was only then about 1, and he started tickling her toes, and then started talking to her, and then started playing with her for the next half hour, ignoring me and Kalia. We just playing with Ada and like bouncing up and down, like tickling her toes, and then there we had to go. Excuse me, Mr. Boba Fett, sir. Can we have a baby back, please?
Oh, he's such a nice guy. Such a nice
person.
Guy. Yeah, he really was.
Such a lovely, genuinely lovely person. And afterwards, he kind of got a poster and he said, Boba Fett said, would you mind signing this, please? And said, let's. We've got off to paying for it. No. I'll sign. So he signed it to Ada. You're cool, Jeremy Bulloch, aka Boba Fett, and it's still up in Ada's bedroom. Well, and it's just that one thing. It's just like that really cut me up.
Yeah.
Out of all the kind of people that have passed away this year, just that one really kind of got me because it's tied to such a quintessential memory for me. But yeah, anyway,
we got a few messages on Paddy. Welcome, Paddy. Sorry, I didn't get back to your message. He says, not people watching in a pervy way, I hope. No, in a purely
intellectual
in an intellectual way. You're sort of kind of just watching them going, what are they going to do? What are they up to? What's in their mind at this moment in time? And then he says, did you hear him sing Rhapsody of Fire? I'm assuming you mean Christopher Lee. And yes, I have. What again? You said you like Sharp. Now, I absolutely adore. I've got first edition books back there, hardbacks and stuff. I've read all the books, watched the series, love it. Sean Bean's one of my favoriteest people in the world. When he played Boromir in Lord of the Rings, I was just like, wow, I love this man.
He played that very well.
Yeah, just absolutely amazing. But I'm a part of a group on Facebook called Sharps Rifles, and
nice.
And it's
men.
Yes, well, it's got Jason Selke I've got now Jason Selke, who played Harris in the series. He's doing this biography of their time filming all the series, and he's sort of writing a book, and he's giving out things. So he posts all these things on there, and I'm hopefully going to get a copy of his book at some point in time when it's finished. But he does a lot of stuff on there, a load of old school photographs of the crew and of Sean Bean and
nice.
And I love it so much. Just I can't,
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. I totally fangasm over it. And it's just I grew up watching Sharp and reading the books, and I just I love it. I love it.
For a while, my ex and I, we watched that show all the time, and he actually sent Dave and I the first season on DVD as a housewarming present.
Oh, nice.
That's why we started watching it again, because I just had videotapes and I don't have a video player anymore, whatever they call those ancient things. But yeah, one of our favorite lines is always, so what is it? You can fire 3 rounds a minute, but can you stand? I mean, just the lines from that show, that, and yeah, Sean Bean is just, he's up there with Christopher Lee. I have very few actors that I actually, and Sean Bean is another of them.
I've got a signed Boromir picture of Sean.
Oh, a man that can sword fight. So
yes, I've got a signed Sean Bean Boromir in a massive frame that one of my exes got me years ago, and I love it. It's like one of my favorite pictures ever. It's just Sean Bean as Boromir with his sort of signature and a photograph and like a certificate showing him signing it and stuff. I was like, this is like my prized possession. I love it. Absolutely love it. And it's just like, he's like, it was like my dad was a massive what's his name, cowboy, John Wayne, massive John Wayne fan. Like, John Wayne could never do any wrong. Like my dad, John Wayne films. So I grew up on John Wayne's. So like Sean Bean is my equivalent of like the John Wayne. He's just like can never do anything wrong. And I'm always so upset because he dies and everything. So it's like when I see him in things like Sharp when he's not dead, I'm just like yes. So when he died as Boromir, that was a good death. That was an epic death. That was all right. Yes. Right.
Acting. What acting credits do you have?
What kind of what?
So you mean like you started out doing acting as well, haven't you?
Yeah. So what was your question about the acting that beat?
So what acting? What are some acting credits?
Acting credits?
Yes.
Gosh, you want me to talk about Warrior? I know it. Yeah. The acting credits, did a lot of stage stuff, which I'm proud of. My favorite role was in Private Live. Very, very fun. I played Kate and Taming of the Shrew. We did an outdoor version of that, Shakespeare in the Park. And then, yes, my very first movie role was this little movie called Princess Warrior that I thought would never come out. And it not only got released, but it was on Gilbert Godfrey. It should have been on MST3K is all I can say. It is a horrible, horrible movie. I had a lot of fun making it. I got paid $25 a day. And what do you want to know about it, Pete? Go ahead.
What's it called? Princess Warrior. Is that what it's called?
Princess Warrior.
Yes, not Warrior. Not to be confused with Xena, Warrior Princess. No, this was Princess Warrior about.
I'm looking at the IMDb.
2 warring sisters.
Yeah, I'm looking at the IMDb at the minute, and there's.
If you want to just read the description,
it's got a picture. So we got a picture. The front for people who won't be able to see this. The DVD cover is we've got a lady in a sort of very short white dress with what looks like a lightsaber actually in her hands, and we've got another lady with Is that you? Is that you, Dana? No way. And we've got another lady with a quite see-through top in black and another lightsaber.
You can tell you're having a lot of fun. I mean, you say like you had a lot of fun. You can tell when you watch the film, you are having a whale of a time.
Well, I sort of channeled Tim Curry as Frankenfurter and William Shatner as Kirk into this villain because the script it calls for over the top but serious commitment to. And so I had fun with it. I just had fun. And the actress that played my sister, I was the evil sister because I'm brunette, and she was the good sister because she was blonde, and her name was Ovule. My name was Curette, which, if you're not familiar with it, is a little tool that is used in abortions. And the writer thought he was being very clever.
Wow. That's dark.
Yeah, and my sidekick hench girls were bulimia and eczema. And rickettsia, that was the other one. So basically, our mother dies and hands over the ring of power to good blonde sister instead of me because I'm evil. And we have this really goofy lightsaber battle. We couldn't actually touch the weapons because they were made of this very brittle plexiglass. And the first time when we were rehearsing, and they had liquid in them, the first time we touched, they exploded all over the place. So we had to just stop there. And so we had all these very dainty women doing dainty lightsaber fights where you couldn't actually touch the swords. So anyway, my sister escapes through this telepod thing to Earth in the middle of a wet t-shirt contest.
Wow.
And I followed her there. And you can't wear clothes in this thing because you become a bunch of supercharged, super fucked ions. Yeah. Oh God. The memories, they're flooding back. You know, all the things I can't remember, and then I can remember this. The world is not a fair place.
The synopsis is sisters from the planet Volcaria teleport themselves to Earth to investigate and report back in order to prove to their mother, the planet ruler, that they are worth becoming queen.
Wow, that's a bad synopsis, and it's not accurate either. Mother's dead.
I've seen this film. It is gloriously wonderful.
Wow, I'm just checking out the pictures.
Many films nowadays take themselves too seriously, and this doesn't. And it's just gloriously over the top fun. And yeah, if you just want to be entertained, don't want subtext, you just want a fun movie, yes, watch this because you will have an absolute laugh.
This is my Christmas movie. I'm watching this.
All right, let me warn you about a couple of things. It has got the longest, most boring wet t-shirt contest in the history of film. The PA went out to buy t-shirts. He bought these thick poly cotton things that would not, when you spray them with water, it would just basically shake it off like duck down. So that's why you see them like throwing buckets of water, and all of the girls ended up slicing the shirts, so they could actually look like they were, they were wearing something sexy. And they spent 8 hours filming this goddamn wet t-shirt contest, and they gave us 2 hours to film the fight scene between me and my sister at the end of the film. 2 hours to choreograph and film it.
You really need to get those wet t-shirts probably. 8 hours. That's immense.
This film needs to be remade.
Oh, yeah. That's an Amazon film right there.
Oh, God. It also has the longest and dullest car chase, I think.
I am totally...
And yeah, so just have alcohol or whatever your form of entertainment is to take your mind off of some of the dull pain. And if you find that wet t-shirt contest exciting, then yay you.
This is like, I'm just like, so there's a guy in it called Bob. They got some really interesting Bob.
Yeah.
we got Sharon Lee Jones is Ovule.
Yes.
Yeah. Yourself is Curette. And Mark Pacific as Bob. And Mark Riccardi as Johnny. There's got to be a Johnny in if you've got a B film, there's got to be a Johnny in it.
Yeah, he was the stunt man. He was the stunt coordinator, Mark Riccardi was. And oh God.
This is amazing. I am totally going to watch this. You know what it's like? Because me and my brother used to love this film called Deathstalker, and it says more like this, and it's got Deathstalker. Sure. So, yeah, totally on board with that. Me and I'll bring it back to Christmas if I can get back to Northern Ireland.
Did your experiences on Princess Warrior kind of influence the writing of the Spawn and Lilith books?
Oh yes. Absolutely. Okay. And a lot of the humor, and there's a lot of experiences that I've had over the little Easter eggs in those books that, even though 20 years have passed then and now, even the last time I worked in film, oh yes. Like I said, it's like I've gotten through some of the more annoying, awful, funny experiences in my life just by going, I'm going to write about this.
Catharsis.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know you said like you've written like a third book in the Swan Lilla series?
That's the one I'm writing now. It's called
Oh,
Hollywood Monsters,
ah,
and we're taking on shows like Ghost Hunter and things like that in this one. So
okay.
yeah, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Your sister's put on Facebook, can't stop
I'm
laughing.
excited about writing it again, which is good.
I mean, usually what happens when you
Uh-oh.
write a series of books, you kind of write the first one, the second one, and the third one. But with Spawn to Live, you kind of wrote the Time Shard books in the middle of that, haven't you?
Yeah, it was 2 books a year, and like my Dave shouldered a large part of the actual first draft, and then we did a lot of brainstorming together. And God, if I hadn't been co-writing that with him, it wouldn't have gotten done. So thank you, Dave. I love you.
What people ask is like, given that you've written so many books like independently, what was it like co-writing the Time Shards with David?
I like collaborating with people. I co-wrote scripts with my ex-husband Brian, and I co-wrote with my friend Maureen.
Oh dear.
Oh, I think we've got.
Because we're so a lot of time spent together. But it worked out really well. We both our skill sets are in different areas, and another there was some tension there, but we're still married. And
Yes, I was going to ask you, how did you kind of resolve your artistic disagreements?
we talked them out. I mean, and a lot of it, because it was his original idea, it was harder for him to let go of certain things because Time Shards was his baby. But especially with each book, we just, I kind of learned where with him, I just should not push something. It's kind of knowing what battles to pick and how to explain them in words that the other person understands. Because even though Dave and I both speak English, there are times where you would swear we were speaking completely different languages. So a lot of it was just trial and error, and remembering that we loved each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they're trying to edit someone's work that's not your own, and trying to do that constructively, and then have them kind of ensure that they are taking that advice constructively and not see it as kind of a personal attack. You kind of have to step away from your work, don't you?
Yeah, you absolutely do. I mean, I'd worked with, our editor for the Time Shards book is Steve Staffel, who also has been my editor with Titan since I started the Ashley books. And I have a pretty good sense of what will and won't fly with Steve, and if there's going to be something that's going to be an issue. And the more that Dave worked with him as well, he learned to trust my instincts on that. So that also made it easier. And yeah, it is hard to not take things personally sometimes. It really is, because even though it's not a personal "you suck," if you're saying this does not work, this is too long, this is convoluted, we don't need this. I know you spent a week researching and writing it, but this scene has to go, it doesn't fit. It's very hard not to take that personally. And I think if the person giving the criticism can remember that, it's easier to give the criticism in a way that is not quite so potentially volatile, if that makes any sense. Because, it is personal. You're telling someone that what they wrote doesn't work,
Yeah, like, before I kind of send anything to an editor, I always give like what I've written to Curly to kind of proofread, so she goes through it with red pen, and this is like, okay, do keep that, don't keep that, that's rubbish. And I kind of just for months take a breath and okay, let's look at this objectively. Yes, I know I wrote this, and everything I write is fantastic and brilliant. No, it's not. You kind of just take a step back and go, fresh eyes. Yeah.
We do though.
And I really. Oh, go ahead.
No, you fire away. You work away.
I was just going to say that. What was I just going to say? That when you learn to pick and choose your battles, especially when you are working with an editor, on a book, it's always better because there are going to be things that you've got to pick. What mountain are you going to put your flag down and be prepared to die upon? Make sure that it's the right cause, or the right scene, or whatever. You just have to learn to pick and choose, and you have to be able to say, okay, I'll let that go, but I'm keeping that. So.
Did you ever have any of those battles with the Spawn of Lilith, the first two Spawn of Lilith books?
I can't remember specifically, but Steve and I don't always see eye to eye, but we managed to get to a point where we do. A lot of the thing, I have the same thing with Steve that I do with Dave sometimes, is that we both speak English, but I'm not always sure exactly what they're trying to tell me or mean. And sometimes it just takes a while. And then we find out that we're actually agreeing. And we agreeing violently is how Dave puts it. So yeah, I don't think I've had a project where I didn't have those moments at times where, I did not understand why something I wrote was not exactly perfect, or why Steve wanted me to get rid of that and now when I look back at the advice he gave me, the critique for the Ashley books, he was absolutely right. I mean, those are much better books.
So I'm assuming you accept the criticism after the initial sort of stab to the heart, as it were.
Sometimes, and sometimes I push back, but I said it's just sort of like you take a deep breath and you say, let's be objective, as Pete said. And when I do that, then I can really see clearly, no, I really want this in the book, and I understand your concerns, but I'm going to make this work, and I want it to stay. And Steve is very good about when I have those moments, he just, backs off, and I like to think trusts me. So.
Yeah, like you mentioned, like the Ashley Parker books, I really enjoyed those books. They were kind of a lot of fun, girl power books, and just a lot of thrill to read. But there's also there's an distinct escalation. The first one was set in a town, then it was country, and then it was the world. But you kind of brought in a really grim version of zombies. Now, I'm not going to spoil it for those that haven't read it, but where does that idea come from?
Are we talking about the
what Gabriel
I guess I can't really. Oh, yeah. Well, originally those books, I was pitched to write these books by Laurie Perkins back when I was writing for Ravenous Romance, and she wanted me to write Buffy, but with zombies, but different. That was what I got, and she said, "Do you want to write it?" And I'm like, "Buffy, zombies, different." Yeah. So I wanted to have a version of the Angel character, who, Angel's a vampire, and he had the good angel and then Angelus, and to sort of be able to have that kind of dynamic with Gabriel. That's where I came up with that. Okay. I feel like we're speaking in code here.
No, actually, yeah, but now you mentioned Angel, I can actually see that connection. I hadn't thought of Angel and Gabriel before, but now, why didn't I think of that sooner?
Well, it's funny because people assumed that he was supposed to be Riley because there was that sort of initiative vibe with the, underground organization. And it's like, oh, no, never Riley. So.
Is there any sort of, is there anything that you would like to write about that you haven't done? Is there sort of an area, a genre even, that you would like to do that you probably haven't done?
I'm sure there is. I can't think of any offhand because right now my focus is all on finishing the Ashley book. I want to do possibly, I guess it's going to be YA. That's the direction we're leaning right now. But my goddaughter-in-law, we want to do a very, very, very dark take on mermaids. And we actually have it plotted out already. And we were supposed to start writing it, 3 years ago. But life happened and other deadlines. So, but that's still in the dark urban fantasy, horror genre.
there's an amazing piece of artwork actually, and I can't remember the artist. It might come to me later, but it's basically I'm horrible with names, by the way. Great with sort of kind of remembering things, just not very good at names. But basically, it's a picture of some fishermen, and there's one who's sort of kind of looking over to this very beautiful sort of mermaid who's sort of kind of looking up, but underneath the water you see one of the other sort of fishermen being drowned, and they've got like claws. The mermaids have like claws and like skulls and stuff in their hands, and it's so good.
Yeah.
And so when you said that about the sort of the darker side of mermaids, that's what sort of came to mind.
Well, it's funny because the idea came because beach glass, which I'm obsessed with, is called Mermaid's Tears, and so we started kind of just thinking along those lines. There's actually a really good series, Mira Grant's In the Rolling Deep, which is completely different from what my goddaughter and I are going to do, but it is a tremendously dark take on mermaids, and it's really fun reading. So I would recommend that.
Okay.
There's a series. So.
Oh, there was a film recently by Guillermo del Toro with a sort of a fish man, wasn't there? As well.
Was that?
Oh yeah, the woman falls in love. What's it called?
Yeah, Debbie Does Dunwich or something.
God, what is it? Bloody names. What is it?
Yeah.
The girl she falls in love with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she falls in love with like a merman, and I thought, yeah, that's kind of a very dark, sort of an alternative take on the mermaid story, isn't it? Or obviously, or not just a gender flip, but also the entire kind of industrial company.
I'm trying to look at his films. What's The Shape of Water? That's what it's called. The Shape of Water. That's it. I think.
Yeah, great.
You're back. Sorry, you went there.
There you are.
Yep. The film was called The Shape of Water.
Oh, that's it. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're kind of doing some editing work as well. So what's your editing work you do?
Basically, with my sister and another fellow, Ben, it's called Book Crafters, and we basically offer editing services, and I've been doing a lot of that. I have done light editing and proofreading for Jonathan. Part of my job as his assistant is when he finishes a draft, I have the fun of reading it and going through it, and it's the best job in the world, because I would buy his books, anyway, and this way I'm getting paid to read something that I would buy. I mean, how cool is that? And I mean, that's basically, it's just your basic editing services. And I enjoy that quite a bit. And then, no, I think I just answered your question. Sorry, that's all I got.
I mean, do you find kind of the process of editing kind of informs your own writing, in a sense?
I think that as I become a better writer and as I do more editing, it kind of one feeds the other. The better an editor I am, the better my own writing becomes. And I thank Steve a lot for making me aware of a lot of problems that I had with my writing. I think that's definitely made me, a better editor. And the thing for me is that when someone sends you something, especially when they haven't written before, the hardest thing I think for a lot of people is, same with giving critique, you have to critique and to help them shape what they want to make it. You don't want to try to turn it into how you would write their book. You want to help them make it the best version of their book.
How do you do that, by the way? I find, because when I edit people's articles on our website, I kind of understand what you're trying to say, but I tend to write it in the way I would write it. So I'd be interested to how you
have to learn to write.
Oh, can I? Horrible.
Very distinct voice when I write. And a lot of people, when they first set out, they're still developing that voice, and it's taking your own ego out of it. It's like going, okay, this part of the story, like when you're doing content editing and you're helping them shape the story, not just like going through and going, proofreading or copy editing. It it's really paying attention, to what you have to talk to them. I mean, when you read something, like I worked with a friend of mine who had something that she wrote during NaNoWriMo, and I wrote down my first impressions about the problems I thought there were, about what I thought was good, about where I thought she could go with it. And then we sat down and we talked for a few hours. I mean, we had a Zoom call as part of the editing process. And she told me what she wanted and what she was trying to do. And then I gave her my feedback of how I thought she could do that and make the story that she wanted. So, it entirely depends on the personality of each person you're working with, because some people, they really want to just hear everything you have to say, and other people don't want to hear it. Other people,
It's not like in order for editing to be successful, or you kind of have to be open to having to the edits. Rather, you can't just go, well, yeah. It seems like you've got to be open to be edited in order for editing to take place. I think it's the best one.
Well, I think you have to be open to. You have to accept that you are fallible, and therefore things you write, can be open to change. I know initially, because I'm dyslexic, so I was always very defensive about my writing and stuff in the first place. And initially when people were telling me things were wrong or that looked bad and stuff, I would be like, oh no, and get really. And then I learnt that I'm never going to get better unless somebody leads me, and I learned very quickly to accept things, and I'm very good now at sort of like, Mark, who again, he's on our podcast now again, he does a lot of sort of checking over the work that I write, and I'm grateful for it, because you can't sort of have, you need that second pair of eyes, and you have to accept that sort of constructive criticism sometimes, that you are fallible, things will be wrong, or things might not feel right, because they're in your mind, especially if you've written a lot. I think you sort of get this. It's very hard to edit your own work, isn't it? Yeah, it is, because you're sort of reading it, and part of it sort of, I'm not with me. I might read things that aren't there, or in my mind it should be there, and it sort of reads better. Whereas somebody else who's not reading it, who isn't me reading it and going, that doesn't read how you I think in your mind it reads. And it's good to have that person on board to sort of kind of. Do you get David involved in your editing process? When you've written like your stories or your work, do you have David read through, or does he just go straight to your editor?
I have a couple people. My sister Lisa and Dave both will do that for me. They know what I'm trying to write, and they know my voice, and the critique I get from them tends to be helpful, and it tends to be, except they know what I'm trying to do, and I don't ever feel like they overstep trying to, create something that they would do instead of what I would do. And I think the most important thing, the most frustrating thing when you're trying to edit someone who doesn't write a lot is a lot of people, they really don't understand what a lot of words actually mean. It's like they're using words that don't belong, in the sentences, the meaning that they're trying to ascribe to them, it doesn't work. And trying to convince people, okay, this is the wrong word. I know what you're trying to say, but this makes no damn sense. That's very, very frustrating.
It's just like it's kind of off point, but you're talking about people using like different words. I find oh god, his name's gone now. I had it in the English comedian, uses a lot of big words. Beard used to go out with Katy Perry. What's his name?
Oh,
Russell Brand. Russell Brand. I find him. Russell Brand. Yes. With Matt, it's all about it's a guessing game. Russell Brand, yeah, and I find that he just says a lot of big words, and I'm just like, I'm not sure if that's sort of kind of meant to mean what you think it's meaning, or if you're just trying to fire out lots of big words so you sound like you're the, you know, generic English intellectual. And it's just like, and you see a lot of people who he talks to, he seems to sort of, like, I find him amusing and he is quite interesting, but I find sometimes when he's interviewing people and he doesn't agree with them, that he sort of does this thing where he starts throwing loads of big words at them and it throws them off guard, and then they sort of don't understand because they obviously don't understand the words, and or they're a bit confused about why they're being used in this context, and he sort of wins the argument. Well, doesn't win it, but he sort of kind of moves on to his point of view because he's throwing out all these different words and stuff. And I sit there and I'm going, I'm not sure if that sort of works there, and then I'm going, well, maybe I'm being an idiot and stuff, but then that's I think what he does, and I find it slightly annoying because you don't need to use that, though, all that sort of, you don't need to be a thesaurus to get your point across, I think, and you're meant to be sort of to get a point across, it should be succinct and it should be sort of to the point, and you know, people should understand it. If people don't understand you, then you're not getting your point across. You're just yeah, and sorry, it just, when you started talking about that, that's sort of popped into my head, and I'm just like, I find it slightly annoying because it's just sort of, you know, you don't need to do. I love like Pete is a master at throwing in sort of words that you would never have in a conversation into a conversation. You can tell he's a writer because he comes up with these words. It's like, that's an amazing word that I've never heard in a sentence in my entire life. But it's like, you know, it's just mad when people sort of do it all the time, and I'm just like, yeah, you don't need to do that.
I save most of mine for my writing because there's times, especially every year that passes, it's like I reach for a word, I can't think of it. You know, I'm like, it begins with a D, it means this, it rhymes with that, you know, but yeah, so I sound like an idiot half the time when I'm talking because I can't remember the word. I am
exactly the same. Like I said, I'm dyslexic, so every single, I would think, especially when I'm writing, I can write better than I can articulate myself vocally, because in my mind these words stick to the back of my head. They're there, and like you said, I know that, you know, I know it sounds like this and it means this and it says this, but when I go to say that word, I'm like, and I just can't get it, and it just sticks there, and it annoys me, and it makes me feel stupid. It makes me feel like I don't know, I don't do English, and I was like, I do English, I just, at this instant moment, I just can't get it out, and it frustrates me. So I understand fully. I fully understand. Yeah. Right. Okay. I think we're going to leave it there. It's been super interesting, and I'm totally watching that film now. That is gonna bring that back. But thank you for.
I warned you.
You do not have to warn me. I've seen the IMDb. Yeah, it looks awesome. It looks so bad. It's gonna be good, you know. But thank you very much. It has been an absolute.
Frankfurter and Captain Kirk.
Oh, Frankenfurter. Do you know what? I know nearly every song from Rocky Horror Picture Show. In fact, me and my very burly English mate from next door got super drunk and did a sing-along to it on his birthday last year. That's yeah. I've just got How Do You Do Ya? So You've Met My Faithful. Don't get thrown off by the way I look. Don't judge a book by its cover. Sorry. By the night of the day, I'm one hell of a man.
Has not been drinking.
Hell of a lover. Because I'm just a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania. Anyways, we'll move on from Matt's love of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. But thank you very much, Dana. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
You're super interesting. Such an amazing life. And I'm going to look out for you in Army of Darkness now.
You'll never find me.
I'm going to start sending. I'll have to send screenshots.
You might. I gave you the. Yeah, you might.
Your sister went work it.
Yeah. And we're going to look forward to reading more of your books, because I've finally got review copies of this Time Shards series, and I'm looking forward to reading Hollywood Monsters when it comes out. So really looking forward to those two.
And get your husband to do the RPG. We need the RPG. Make it happen.
I will tell him that.
Yeah, get it. get him to do it. That'd be awesome, right? So yes, thank you very much. You know, a privilege. Absolutely, thank you very much. Oh, your sister's got that. That was for the Rocky Horror Picture Show fan. That's me.
I figured. Thank you guys. I've had a wonderful time, and it's so nice seeing you again, Pete. I wish it was in person, but
Yeah, it's been far too long.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
One of these days. One of these days. Okay, so thanks everybody for watching, for the comments from Lisa and from Patty as well. Thanks for engaging. It was much appreciated. For tonight, I've been Matt Geary, and with me has been Peter Ray Ellison.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
And our very special guest, Danafredsti.
Happy holidays.
Thanks. Bye.